All right. Hey, everyone. Jeff here. Stop the Pirates, stopblogspot.com. The Great American Adventure. The local police and prosecutors are not in place to serve and protect the American public, but to the contrary, they're structured to protect the slave drivers and the private United States corporation by enforcing its corporate statutes against the corporate enemy, which is the American people, the American citizen. Most of these police officers haven't a clue about how they have been indoctrinated and manipulated. They're so naive and well-meaning that they actually believe they are preserving and protecting the public. The politicians, prosecutors, judges, priests, and clerks know the truth, and many of them increase their personal spoils with every conviction. Yes, the Vatican judges, prosecutors, and clerks make money off every conviction and lawsuit, and their clearinghouse for all of these private spoils is located in the Texas Federal Reserve under an account titled the CHRIS Fund, CHRIS. If American judges truly are the good guys, why don't they wear white robes instead of black? The answer is because black is a pagan traditional color for Illuminati priests, which will make more sense once you read on. And it says here, if our police officers would simply invest a little energy and time to research and read something other than Playboy or Popular Mechanics, or to hoist a few at the local police pub, they would discover that the amended version of the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1933 by President Franklin D. Roosevelt specifically identifies the American citizen as the enemy of the federal government. The fraud and deception perpetrated by these slave drivers works well as long as they can maintain their deception and manipulation over the masses. And I think now we've come to a kind of a crossroads in that, I mean, all this money they're pumping into the stock market to keep these corporations alive and themselves alive is being hoisted on the backs of the American citizens. And I don't think our credit's that good anymore. I mean, there's no way we'd ever in a million years pay that these trillions of dollars back. In fact, and in reality, the historic civilian government promised by the Constitution of the United States of America never existed, nor did it ever have a chance of succeeding, courtesy of President George Washington and the Continental Congress. President George Washington, the reputed father of our country, cleverly overthrew the organic Constitution of the United States of America using the Articles of Confederation, then reinstated the privately owned colonial corporation of the Virginia colony. He then installed a military government, which is concealed in plain sight, e.g., Commander-in-Chief, Attorney General, Secretary General, Auditor General, Surgeon General, Postmaster General, etc. The Constitution was a well-written document, which was copied from the Iroquois Federation government. Many of the safeguards found in the organic Constitution were added by the Founding Fathers to bind the hands of the other delegates because none of them trusted each other, which proves the old proverb that there is no honor among thieves. I bet you never knew that the American Indians were governed by an emperor named Moytoy and enjoyed a federation government. We were all falsely taught that the red race were just savages. The Iroquois Indians are the architects of the universal postal system of the world, and I bet you never knew that the red race of America are the only known living descendants of the continent of Atlantis, which sunk into the Atlantic Ocean around 9600 BC. The overthrow of the Constitution by President Washington was no real loss to America because the Constitution had actually been converted into a business plan designed to benefit the Founding Fathers and not the American people. This information may not correspond with the material that was pounded into your brains during the forced public school education, but it is a fact nonetheless. America factually continued to operate under the privately owned corporation of the Virginia Colony until March 9, 1933. And then that corporation was dissolved by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt upon the passage of the Emergency Banking Act, and at which time he instituted a new privately owned corporation called the United States, Inc., which is registered in France and recorded under the Vatican Corporation of Rome. Now, isn't that a perplexing situation? The term the United States of America never got off the ground and is a fictitious name fraudulently used by the masters and slave drivers because it conforms to the same educational material that society has been indoctrinated with, and because it appeases the ears and minds of the patriotic public, but it is all just another corporate prevarication. America was guaranteed a public education, but never guaranteed a truthful education. And as Shakespeare once wrote, and therein lies the rub. Factually, the concept of government institution known as the United States of America has not existed since the passage of the Declaration of Independence. However, the elite slave drivers have cleverly convinced the American public that this is all real by creating and celebrating national holidays, by erecting monuments, by adopting the national anthem and flag, by fictionalizing history, by propagating a false freedom, and by forcing this indoctrination upon society through mandatory public education. According to the Articles of Confederation, the phrase "we the people" is defined to mean "we the delegates," which refers only to the politicians and not the public, which proves again that the Constitution of the United States of America was never intended to protect or serve the American public. There are several early administrative court rulings which confirm the same conclusion for those of you that require something more than common sense and my educated opinion or observations. Everything in America is about contracts, and it is our burden as Americans to make government perform honorably, to be specific, to prohibit them from changing the meaning of common words, which is referred to in their circle of friends as legalese. The American Bar Association is a foreign union, and its members are all working in collusion with Israel, the British Empire, the Vatican, the Rothschild and Rockefeller banking empires, Congress, and the elite to undermine America. All attorneys are agents of a foreign power who swear allegiance to that foreign power, i.e. the Queen of England. Because the Bar Association comes out of the Temple Bar in the inner city of London, which is in itself kind of like the Vatican and the District of Columbia, their own city-state. This is why all lawyers must file a written notice of appearance in every court case they represent. By that notice, the lawyer is admitting to the court that he is a foreign agent and he is requesting permission to represent you in that corporate court. Your contract with the lawyer gives him your sovereign power of attorney to represent your best interests, and he immediately uses it against you by admitting to the judge that you will accept the jurisdiction and decisions of the corporate court. So much for winning the case or any appeal. When a prosecutor loses a trial, he is obligated by the court to pay the costs of the prosecution out of pocket. Your attorney always divulges your defense strategy to the prosecutor to avert this embarrassment and penalty from being assigned to him. This group is a brotherhood, and these corporate courts are a business, and everything is about commerce. People are regarded as nothing more than corporate property. The American Bar Association is actually a branch of the National Lawyers Guild Communist Party, which can only be located in the hard copy printing of 28 U.S.C. 3002, Section 15A. The online version of Title 28 U.S.C. United States Code has been altered by the Attorney General to read something entirely different, apparently because this fact has recently shown up in too many private court petitions and memorandums of law. To become a member of the Bar Association, applicants must have attained a doctorate in law or the equivalent thereof and passed an examination designed to test the depth of their indoctrination. If they pass, they are required to surrender their American citizenship and swear allegiance to the Queen of England and not the Constitution. This means that all card-carrying American lawyers are foreign agents, liars, traitors, and communists. No wonder Jesus warned us about the lawyers. The privately owned corporate Federal Reserve System debt has cleverly been renamed the national debt to suggest that this is the American public debt. However, it is not America's debt, but rather Israel's debt and the private Federal Reserve's corporate debt. And yet we have been deceived into thinking and believing that the complete opposite by the corporate slave drivers through their use of patriotic slogans like, "This is the cost of freedom." If you want more proof, examine the fine print of your savings or checking account contract. You will discover that each time you open one of these accounts, you agree to be responsible for the repayment of the national debt. Now, why would that language ever be included in an application for a checking or savings account if the national debt already was our responsibility? The answer is so that the banks may confiscate your assets without further permission. Pretty clever. It's called negative interest rates. They're coming very soon. Would it interest you to know that the FCC, CIA, FBI, IMF, NSA, IRS, OPM, ATF, DEA, and NASA, Interpol, Homeland Security, and all other members of the Alphabet Gang are all privately owned corporations, and none of them are or ever has been an agency of the United States, Inc. The United States government always held some stock in these corporations, but never outright owned or controlled any of them. And I checked up on that. You can go into Dun & Bradstreet and type in any of these. Dun & Bradstreet is kind of like the credit reporting agency, like a TRW or Equifax for these corporations. So just go to DunandBradstreet.com and type in Homeland Security. You see it's a privately owned corporation. But so is the United States government. It's a corporation's soul, which is a whole different thing. The corporation is always there. They asked Joseph Smith, the guy who started the Mormon Church, one time, and he said, "Own everything, but control everything, but own nothing." I mean, that's how a corporate soul works, and they work on donations. And each seat, like the president or Congress or whatever, just gets passed on into the corporate soul position. Their employees receive paychecks from the OPM, which belongs to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which is the property of the United Nations, which belongs to Israel and the royal and elite class of Europe. All of the alphabet gangs are now registered property of the United Nations. It is no wonder that President Wilson's League of Nations never got off the ground, and that out of 267 nations on the earth, only 71 are members of the United Nations. All this deception is compounded by the refusal of ordinary Americans to realize now or understand that it is the secrecy and duplicity of privately owned corporations being surreptitiously portrayed as American agencies and government, coupled with the deceit and endless greed of Israel, European bankers, and the royal and elite families of the world that have come together to fleece the American people like the sheep they truly are. And unfortunately, America's public apathy and ignorance only serves to reinforce the lie. This paper hopes to expose many of the secrets of America, but unfortunately not all of them. A few references have been suggested or offered for you to investigate on your own if you are so inclined. If you strongly disagree with anything I have written, great. Now prove that I am wrong, but be careful how you react, because we patriotic Americans have all been taught from an early age to just simply deny without proof anything that contradicts your imaginary template defined as the American way of life. Those who don't know their past are condemned to repeat it. Go to stopthepirates.blogspot.com. Have a great day.